Welcome to RPG Reanimators, a podcast for GMs where we dissect horror scenarios and offer our experiences and advice to reanimate them at the table. I'm Lex.
I'm Nathan.
I'm Alex.
I'm Holly.
And today we have a freshly delivered specimen. I kind of want to add some sort of David Lynch, like Twin Peaks sound effect here instead.
Ooh, yeah.
Ooh, ethereal whooshing. That's
Ethereal whooshing. Got it. Rather than dissecting a scenario, today we're examining an entire system called Something is Wrong Here by Kira Magrann. To best understand this aberration, we'll discuss the system itself, what makes it unique, and give our best input on how to try running this at your table or room, abandoned field, wherever you decide to play this at. Now, let's begin. So, Holly, you're the one who first brought this to our attention. Can you tell us generally what is this system?
Sure. I think it describes itself as a game of dark dreams and troubled times. Definitely takes all of its inspiration from the works of David Lynch and focuses on like real people and their stories, troubled people trying to make connections with each other. It's very surreal. It's diceless, and there's really not a GM. It's more like a director almost, because it's told in acts and scenes. Mm-hmm. You have 5 characters to choose from. They're everyday people. They all have some darkness within them and a need that is very explicitly laid out, and that they choose another player to fulfill that need. Whether or not they're successful in that is actually part of the conclusion of the story.
I'd like to talk about what it means to be like Lynchian, or what is surrealism, right? Because I think we need to have an understanding of that before we jump into Something is Wrong Here. So surrealism, right? It's focusing on the unconscious mind. A lot of symbolism there. If you've watched any of David Lynch's media, like Twin Peaks or Mulholland Drive, it really has a dreamlike atmosphere. Maybe there's things in the background that have no business being there. Maybe people, their dialogue is just like, it's floaty, and it can really be a little uncanny and unexpected, as well as beautiful. But all intents and purposes, it's very unconventional.
Are there any elements in the game that you've noticed really hit the nail on the head for that David Lynch vibe? Or are there any like direct call-outs that you could recognize? I have something of a passing knowledge of David Lynch, but I haven't watched a lot of his media and things. So really curious if others recognized anything.
Well, we'll talk in the second bit a bit about the doppelgangers, but that's a big sort of thing in Twin Peaks, for example. There is a character that is the same actor as another character, but with different colored hair. And, you know, that there's symbolism there, I'm sure, and it's all very smart stuff.
So much subtext, so much symbolism.
There's a box in every scene that the players don't know what's in it, but they are told that it is something terrible. And they're encouraged to kind of incorporate it into their scenes as much as they like. I've seen this to like varying effectiveness, I think, but it's an odd thing. This box that kind of centers every scene.
They can never open it. That's one of the rules.
Yeah, they can never open it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I want to note the box. That's Lynchian, baby. That's
Okay.
Mulholland Drive right in there.
Is it that? I haven't seen Mulholland Drive, so I was just like,
You should. It's good.
I don't get the box. Okay.
It's not exactly 1-to-1, but it's that sort of idea, right? Where, what is this weird box? Why does she have this? It's, you know, it's one of those of, it probably means something, but you might not always know what it is. That's part of the surrealness, right? You might get to the end of it and you go, I have no idea what any of this meant, but it felt like it meant something, and that's what is important.
I appreciate that.
That's me at the end of every game of Something is Wrong Here.
It really gives the same vibes as the cowboy in Mulholland Drive, where it's like, you know,
Yeah.
if you see me one time, it's good. If you see me 2 times, and then like if you see me 3 times, like, and then it's over or something. It's got that same surreal energy.
Okay, I appreciate the clarification because the closest I was getting was like the log lady holding the log all the time from Twin Peaks. But
I think, and we'll get into this a little bit in war stories, even if, and like in my experience anyway, even if the players don't actually use the box itself, something becomes an equivalent of the box. We'll get into the koala finger puppets.
Oh my God.
But like something ends up being like a box surrogate if you don't actually use the box, something that is just completely unexplained that people treat as like this, well, yeah, of course that's what it is. So, yeah.
now we're sharing the brain cell too hard because that was one of my ideas later on. But can you go ahead and walk us through how the game typically plays out? You said that it's a 2-act structure in general?
Right. And Act 1 is told in scenes. The facilitator chooses the scene where it takes place and the scenario, usually a prompt, like you're arguing about someone's trying to get a fix. You're in a trailer park, someone's trying to get a fix. 2 to 3 players choose to be a part of that scene, and then they pick the mood and the emotion of the scene. There's like actually a list of available moods and emotions. Each one is only used once. Then the scene is acted out based on prompts. They don't have to be sequential. They don't have to follow previous scenes or any kind of rhyme or reason, which kind of lends itself to that surreal feeling once again. Like it's all in media res, like no context. The director decides when they end. They're supposed to last about 5 minutes. In my experience, they really just come to a natural conclusion. Like people just kind of go with it until it's like, okay, we have nowhere else to go with this. This is a good place to stop. Then at the end of each scene, one player there's a bunch of cards that match each emotion, and one of the players takes a card matching the emotion, and then they have an acting prompt for the next scene. And some of them are benign, like in the next scene you're in, act like you keep hearing this buzzing noise. And some of them are really weird. Like in the next scene, you become the facilitator and decide, change the setting, change the mood.
Or my personal favorite is start monologuing, and then anytime someone asks you about it, change the subject.
Yeah.
That has led to like the most hilarious moments while playing or watching the game.
This is a good game if you've got players that like to monologue. This is like the game for it, because that feels very Lynchy to just be like, they're starting talking, not sure what it's about, but they're going to keep going.
It's a fantastic game for improvisers.
Yeah.
Like improv.
Yeah, don't bring this one out for like people who have just never heard of a role playing. What is a role playing game? Well,
Yeah,
buddy, let me introduce you to this.
This is like Pathfinder, right?
Oh boy. I just took 66 mental damage thinking about that.
So, Holly, can you tell us a little bit about the mirror scenes? Because
Yeah,
those
yeah.
are interspersed as well.
So yeah, every 3 scenes you pause and have like a mirror scene, and every player has an individual scene where they are just staring at themselves in the mirror, and they answer the question, what do you see, by responding with how their character is feeling.
Right. And if I remember right, isn't the mirror supposed to be that there is a mirror world that is sort of omnipresent, and they're acknowledging that they may be talking to just themselves or this other version of themselves, and they're holding the box but aren't supposed to acknowledge it each time?
Yeah. It's a little strange. I've been told by multiple people this all feels like a giant therapy session. Like it's because it's very like it can be uncomfortable and not in like a bad way. Just you're staring at yourself, you're staring yourself down. It can be uncomfortable. So yeah, you do that. Technically, it goes through only 9 scenes interspersed with 3 mirror scenes. I think I've actually, every time I've played it, I've just gone through all of the available emotions, because there's more than 9. There's 12, I think. And I was just like, let's keep it going, I guess. And then in Act 2, so after you've done the number of scenes, there's a goodbye scene where everyone chooses only one other player to have a final scene with. I think the prompt is basically like you all have this feeling like something is coming and you'll never see each other again. The scenes last only 2 minutes, and it actually explicitly says like the facilitator starts a timer and cuts them off at the end of 2 minutes. There's no emotions or scenarios to act as a guide. They just go. Usually I've seen the players like try to set the scene. They're like, oh, we're at your house and, you know, let's sit down. After the goodbye scenes, there's confrontation scenes in which every player has a scene with their evil doppelganger, which is the person that they had chosen at the beginning of the game to fulfill their needs. The setting is chosen by the doppelganger. The doppelganger has a card that is kind of gives them tips to sow doubt and pain based on the character that was chosen by the other player. It gives them some insights into the player's darkness. And the doppelganger basically attempts to break down the character. The player chooses at the end were their needs met throughout this entire session. And if not, the doppelganger has overcome them and they are trapped. But if their needs were met, then the doppelganger is not a threat to them and they leave the scene having escaped. And that's that weird game. I find the doppelganger scenes to be the one that people seem to be the least, like a little bit more confused by. Like, I'm not really sure what I'm supposed to do here.
They're tough. Yeah. Having played this a couple times, I think one of the things I want to do better is listen to other people's scenes and really try and have an idea of that other person who I know I'm going to be the doppelganger of, trying to get an encapsulation of what the heck they're all about.
Yeah, I think that's a good idea. And then the game is, you know, after that, it's the aftercare. Players remove something that represented their character and put it on the ground in the pile. And then they kind of discuss the most intense experience, the most positive experience. They thank each other for the experience. So, you know, I can appreciate that. Like, it talks a lot about, you know, I know in LARPing, they have not LARPed before, but I know that's a thing in LARPing too, like the shedding of your character and like preventing that bleed, which can be really, you know, it can be emotionally hard. So,
yeah, it's interesting that they really are aiming to get that bleed in the game. Cause usually you try and immediately keep it separate, but like during the game, right? I think they're trying to find that medium point of the player versus the character and bringing those. And also you hide the scary box in that aftercare scene. I just thought that was a fun little reminder of like, okay, the bad thing that's been there the whole time, go put that out of sight.
That's a really interesting point, Nathan, that it's actually trying to intertwine those personal issues and feelings with these of the different character. They're more archetypes than anything. As even before the game starts, I immediately was caught off guard because the facilitator, or Holly, I think you said the director, will ask everyone around the table to describe a recurring dream or a nightmare that they have had. And I find that that is a really interesting tone setting device because people can be as genuine and vulnerable, or, you know, just like, I'm in class and don't have pants on, next, and moving on. So that can help with tone setting. And also I think that a lot of the system that I have seen depends on priming, and generally people will say something that other people may get attached to, and then that will sort of snowball in importance as the game goes on, whether it is a syphilis-riddled koala who moans when you touch her nose, or to apparently do like touch to pay, or how everything is a taco, and something about the Kennedy tapes. Generally, there's just some obscure detail that, like, that's what the players really latch onto, and then builds into these absurd, entertaining sessions.
Yeah, those in improv would be called like workshops, or they're called workshops in this. They might call them opening. So if you've ever gone to something, they'll ask the audience and say like, okay, what's a place we're doing something at? Oh, the barbershop. Okay, well, maybe we'll set that there, or it'll have something to do with that. Different sort of places have different ways to do openings. So kind of like this one, right, is you might ask, what's a nightmare you've had? And then base it off of that. And I think that's a neat way to get that for a like role-playing audience.
So pretend you're speaking to someone who has never been to an improv show or ever read an improv book. Truly pretend that that person is not asking questions right now.
Okay.
like what other parts of improv really are ringing clear for this game or this system? Or are there any other devices or things that you would recommend for players to consider if they were getting ready to play it?
As somebody that consumes a lot of improv, you'll see if you read books on these, the kind of core things you'll see are listen. So pay attention to what other people are saying. It's boy, that's something I struggle with sometimes. I think we all do. Of like, oh, what was that? I was doing something else with my character sheet. So listen to what other people are doing, and not just like hear the words, but kind of internalize. What is their body language? What are they saying that is different than before? Subtext, that sort of thing, is important to kind of listen to, because you'll often have a improv scene where someone says, "Don't you dare press that button again," and what they're really saying is, "Please press that button again. I want to have a scene where I'm angry at you for pressing the button." But you gotta kind of pay attention to that. Um, except it would be your like yes ands, right? So you might go natively like yes and, that's kind of the easy route. The other way is just to say, accept what people are saying, what they're offering you, and build on it. So if I said, "You're opening the reptile cage again, huh? You must be real sick of that snake." You might still say, "I'm not sick of this snake. I love this snake." But you've accepted that it's a reptile cage. You have a snake. You have feelings about it.
Yeah, and just to add on to that, I'm currently reading Improvise, Seen from the Inside Out by Mick Napier. And one of the best things to do that Mr. Napier says is to take care of yourself first by having a strong foundation. Paradoxically, by taking care of yourself first, you're taking care of your partner because then they can work off of you. If you are just staring at someone and thinking, "Oh my God, what am I doing? What can I come up with?" It's just gonna look awkward. But obviously, this is in the context of like improv comedy shows. But
Right.
you can the less thinking, the better. Just have a stance. Just full send it.
Yeah, the
Right.
commit is what's important there, because it's less important what you say. There's not really a wrong answer. Like for this game, there's not a wrong way to have your character be. What's more important is that once you've established that character, you commit to that character, and not just, every scene you go, "Oh, never mind. I have changed my point of view from that last one. Never mind. I've changed it from that." It's a lot more interesting if you have something to stand on.
Absolutely.
And I also think, sort of expanding on what, or yes anding onto what you were just saying, from watching or playing in a few games of this, I think that something that is really helpful for players and others to keep in mind are to sort of feel free to insert or add into things in the system, because the setting is pretty general. It's modern-ish day setting in some small town America, and then you have a group of broken people who are facing their demons and or troubled pasts. But in like the first game that we played of it with everyone here, and then friend of the podcast Colin Richards, other folks, like it was an amazing time. And I think that one of the things that made it so special is actually, Alex, you kept inserting yourself in like the background, and it created this narrative as like, why is the same guy shaking drinks behind the bar, and also like an assassin for hire,
and he's
then,
an Uber driver.
Yeah, and the Uber driver.
Yeah.
And then, like, yeah, Nathan, you were adding other details in too. And I think that led to a much richer storytelling experience than the second time that I played it. Whenever it was during Chaosium Con, we were all fucking tired, and we were just more kind of following what was on the card. And so, we got punchy and just made up ridiculous things as the thing went on. Inserting more things beyond the prompts on the card, it really makes the story your own. And I think that it led to a wonderful experience.
Yeah, and you're listening, right? When you're doing that sort of thing, when Alex jumps in and plays the bartender, he's listening to, where are they setting this? Like, what kind of bartender should I be for the setting that they're implying, right? He's building off of that
Right.
when he comes in.
You're establishing the context, right? So
Right.
I also ended up like using props for this as well, and like
Yeah.
getting a nice layout to make it more believable to help people along. When I was the Uber driver, I actually set up chairs in the arrangement for a car, and that added to the scene. When I was a bartender, I was shaking a cocktail shaker.
You were shaking a cup that had dice in it, so it even
Yeah,
had that
it was really great, though.
shaka sound. It was
Yeah.
good.
I think Lex is right, though. It gives them, and it kind of it lends itself to an overarching story. Like the story is not ever you're not gonna be totally complete. There's gonna be lots of gaps and questions of like what is going on here. But it lends itself well to an overarching story that is clearly defined instead of just random scenes where people are like, "Blah."
No, you got a full send. I'm double downing on that.
Yeah.
Yep. And that's an important part there is if you want this to have an arc as well, is not only did we say like that full send commit, but be willing to then change over time in probably as dramatic a fashion, if you watch a movie like Luke Skywalker at the start just wants, stuff from the station, power cells or whatever.
Blue milk.
By the end, he's a big hero that's worried about saving people, right? It's that kind of like he's changed over the course of the adventure. You either want to intentionally see where this character is going or intentionally not change, which can be a really fun tragedy sort of element for these when you get swallowed by your doppelganger.
I think that there's, that because it's non-linear, you have the option of Tarantinoing around a little bit, and it's like we, start at the very beginning, but then we jump ahead and then we jump back, and I think there was a little bit of that in the last times we've played, and I think that's good. It's interesting.
I think that to an extent it's necessary because of the random shuffle nature of the cards and picking them up, because some cards are a lot easier to riff off of than others, and so sometimes it is a hard pivot. And this also can get disrupted by the results of the emotion cards that people deliver, because I remember one that's very funny that it's the actor will immediately stop the full scene and then describe an entirely new scene with the same actors that are playing entirely different people. So like it's going to be very hectic and sporadic, and I really it's a super novel experience and all, which also begs the question, is this technically a role-playing game? Is it an improving game? What is it?
It's definitely a role-playing something.
Experience.
Like a game, right? When you think of a game, there's some kind of objective, right?
Yeah, this might go under, if you've got people that are really sticklers for definitions, this might go under an improv exercise.
Oh boy.
Because there's not really there's no mechanics per se, right?
Right.
You've got a list of prompts.
Yeah, there's no game play.
No dice, no rules,
improv
no nothing.
is the gameplay.
I think it's like if you find yourself and your gaming group has found themselves playing, the same games for years and years and years, and you're finding yourselves saying like, man, I'm ready for something different, for something new, for something like original. Like I pick up this game because it'll definitely deliver on that.
Well, that's but that's the other definition of game, right? Where it's like, well, it is structured fun, so it's a game.
Yeah,
but
it does fit the role playing for sure.
Yeah.
Like I don't know. Yeah, but it is very, very different.
And so, bearing in mind that we've been talking primarily from the players / the actors' perspective, Holly, you're the only one that I know has run some sessions of this. Could you talk about sort of your experiences as a facilitator, and if there's any issues you've encountered, something like that?
Sure. Yeah, I think it's fun. I am very not good at improv. I'm not an actor, so this is kind of my way of kind of enjoying it from a different perspective of like, oh, I get to watch other people.
Dance,
it's like watching
monkey,
a movie.
dance. Oh, okay.
I get to like pull the strings a little bit, but very, very minimally. And it's basically watching a movie. So you can see the just the weirdness as it evolves. I would say that there are maybe some challenges. And again, like not from the facilitator perspective, the facilitator's job is literally like, this is your scene, this is what's going on, and that's like it. But I see that it can be hard for players to run with that. So maybe kind of briefing people beforehand, like this is kind of what to expect. Things like when you're choosing someone to meet your needs, I feel like that has often gone forgotten, where it's like, what was I doing? Like, who did I pick at the beginning of this game 2 hours ago to meet my needs? I don't even remember anymore, because it's been such a weird experience. We've been making out with koala puppets, So,
right. And I think that this is a good moment to sort of transition into general strengths and limitations of the system, because in that same vein, if there were ever a game that would benefit from a cheat sheet or like a general orientation sheet, kind of like what I've seen in Bluebeard's Bride or something, explaining the setting and building the character, those dynamics, would be really helpful, because I feel like the beginning and end, it gets kind of rocky in terms of keeping track of who does what, when, and why is this important.
Right. And I think, it's just getting people, this is so new, like, unless you have just a group of improv actors doing this is going to be such a different experience. This is going to be such a different experience that, maybe, going in, kind of explaining it. Maybe, I don't know how you can reinforce the idea of this is the person you've chosen to meet your needs, but something along that lines. The idea of, like Nathan mentioned, like you really should listen to what these people are saying in these scenes, so you have like ideas to build off of.
I would say if you really enjoyed and loved playing 10 Candles, you're really going to enjoy this game.
Yeah.
I would agree with that. Yeah. Because it's very improv heavy. The players just hold so much of the narrative themselves, Yeah.
I like the idea of a cheat sheet a lot, because there is a sheet that kind of talks about like, okay, what are you, like, how's Act 1 scene order go? But it would be nice to have a, like, okay, Act 1, these scenes, Act 2, these scenes, and maybe even a section to say, like, okay, facilitator, remind players about their, their other person that they need to be looking out for.
This is a completely random thought, and I am not saying this to obligate myself into making it, but it would be so fun to have a cheat sheet that looks like a script. Like old-fashioned Hollywood script where facilitator like lines and then scene 1, scene 2, etc.
Yeah, because that's kind of the biggest weakness, in my opinion, to this game is the layout is just challenging. It's a deck of cards, which is really nice and compact, easy to take to conventions with you, yada, yada. But that means the rules are spread over like 12 different cards, and they're not like numbered to be like, okay, start here, then this is number 2, this is number 3. So it's like, oh God, which... Wait, we're going into scene 2. Where's the damn scene 2 card?
Yeah, the back does, but not the front, which is the side you're looking at.
Right. I feel like there's an issue with the game that kind of goes in either way in how you want to stick with it, because I think that if you want to try and stick with the rules or recommendations quite rigidly, it's a lot of issues. And if for a game that's really encouraging freeform improv into all this wackiness, it feels like, oh, hang on, now we need to go back and do this or something else. One of my complaints as well is, like with the box, it tends to very easily be forgotten if we start getting excited about something and our attention moves into some kind of other focus. And Nathan and Holly, I think y'all mentioned this a bit earlier, is I would really rather relax on the rules a bit and use this as a very fun, improv-heavy system to make what story you will, and let players get attached to different objects and use the environment around them instead of just only emphasizing the one thing that might be forgotten and frankly doesn't seem that important.
Yeah, I think with the nature of like the way people are, right? And that we latch on to things and then we carry references with us. It's, like our own, never mind. I was going to make a reference to Star Trek. It's not important.
Go for it. Do it.
Yeah. What's that? I can't remember it now. That's why it's like Darmok and Jalad at Tanagra.
Oh,
like,
yeah.
Where Captain Picard like meets this person and their entire language structure is like references to their history. So he can't speak with them because the guy keeps saying Darmok and Jalad at Tanagra. And he's like, I don't know what you're saying. And it's like, basically, I'm making a reference to, these two guys fought and died. And that's why I'm trying to tell you what's happening here, which is actually kind of at least now, we all kind of speak in references and memes, and like half the conversations I have with people are just a meme with like a reference. So it's a little bit like that, where we kind of pick the thing and keep bringing it up. The koala puppet, the Kennedy tapes kind of became basically the box the last time we played, because it kept coming up. The Kennedy tapes, the Kennedy tapes, the Kennedy tapes. Like, okay, that's our box today. That's the thing that is ever present.
Nice.
Yeah, that'd be a good use for the end scene cards, is maybe have alternate sets that say like, oh, introduce the box based on the previous scene or something. Maybe that might make it a little more sticky.
I mean, there's certainly room for homebrew with the card format. You can just introduce your own cards. I would say that strength and limitation is that because it's such an improv heavy game, this is really going to depend on the strength of the players.
Yeah. I'm glad too, Holly, you guided the ones that I've played, and I thought you claim you're not good at improv, but the facilitator is such a, like, you have to be keeping an eye on everything. You have to be keeping in mind the time and everything of not just the players, like Alex said, but the facilitator, them having kind of a director's view of this. It's going to depend a lot on that, because if you have somebody that doesn't really get the tone or isn't able to communicate that, it can be a tough sell. Although the cards are pretty good at doing a summary of like, okay, read this out. I think we get it, but it's still not the same. You know, if your facilitator's really good, they'll make sure everybody gets it.
And I think, that I guess I can't say it's a weakness. It's just a quirk that, different people are going to come into this game with different improvisational styles, right? So like we've played before with, Morgan from Into the Darkness, who's very, very serious and like handles everything with a lot of like gravity. And I can appreciate that, right? Like his characters are always extremely troubled, and he like gives his whole self to a role.
Yeah.
And that's one way to do it. And then you have on the other side of the spectrum, and this is absolutely no hate at all, because I love Colin, like a person who brings a koala puppet and is like, this is my wife. And I love that. I love both of those things. It's just sometimes it can be a little jarring to have both of those things, and maybe not. I don't know.
But isn't that surrealism, right?
It is surrealism.
Yeah. Like, okay, maybe we can't quite define surrealism like a hammer on the nail, but like when you see surrealism, you kind of know.
Yeah. Yeah, and it's important. I think the key there is if you have one or two people being like weird, maybe not everybody should then be weird.
Let's not all be weird.
Like, I'm so sorry from the last game. I was a little weird. The first game I wasn't. I was normal-ish, but it really depends, right? Is once you see that character come in with their koala puppet, you might go, I should be the normal one this time. Let me play the straight man.
Someone please be the straight man.
Yeah, ground it a little bit.
So that's really curious, because I remember, Holly, you were saying that in one of the games that I was not around for, that like you ran the one for us with Morgan and Colin and everything. It was a hoot and a half. Oh God, my Texas is showing. But like it was so funny. My face hurt all the next day from laughing so hard. And then you said that you ran another game with Morgan and some others, and it was dead serious the whole time.
It really was. It was very serious. That was the one that someone was like, Jesus, this was like a therapy session, and I don't know if I really wanted that.
Yeah, it's group dependent, right?
It is.
Mm-hmm.
If you ever have had the privilege of like running multiple groups through games, like you'll come to the understanding that, like, let's say you have friend group with friends A, B, C, D, and then you also have like, 1, 2, 3, 4, just to like keep it easy. If you swap out, like, let's say friend B with friend 2, it completely changes the dynamic, because it's just how they all work together as a whole. And I think the facilitator should be very cognizant of that.
I agree.
The safety tools in this are so important. Like, I know we always talk about doing safety tools. This has just 2 cards for it, and they're good cards. Like, definitely go over them with people, because, like you said, someone went out of it as like, this is like therapy. Yeah, this can open
This is
up
like
stuff
therapy, and
that
I did
you're
not
not
want
aware.
therapy tonight. Yeah.
Yeah,
Right.
yeah.
Like someone just signed up to play a nice game with friends, not
Right.
unpack emotional trauma.
So I think that, going into it
Lucky.
with eyes open of like, this is a dark game about troubled
Yeah.
people, about confronting your demons. If that's not interesting to you, then absolutely, and that to the strength of the system, it does effectively use safety tools and talk about them a lot. And I think as the facilitator, it is important to like understand the vibe. That was my regret the last time we played, is almost immediately I could tell that like people didn't want dark and disturbing. And I still kept pushing for like the mirror scenes, the doppelganger scenes. And it's like, maybe we just don't need that for this game. If everyone's talking about like the Kennedy tapes and turning that into calzones and what is a calzone versus a taco. And
It's because everything is a taco until you close it. We've been through this.
and again, that is like 100% a valid way to play because it's fun. And it's like, it was a fun game. It was funny, but it's like, I think as a facilitator, you need to like, okay, if people really were not bringing the like dark and broody and, maybe don't force the therapy on people if they're clearly not wanting it.
Yeah.
I think that could easily be resolved with the initial scene of everyone talking about their recurring dream or whatnot. Before that, even whenever you're talking about playing, sort of, one of y'all said it, I lost track, but just like have a general tone setting question of what kind of game do you want?
Yeah.
Do you want something more fun? Do you want something more serious? Because, that would be, we've played some games of 10 Candles that were somewhat more lighthearted than others, as lighthearted as like can be for 10 Candles. But as with any GM-less system, it's totally dependent on the players, and generally depending on the player group, people can sort of give and take and see what direction people are going and what they're interested in and steer in that way. And particularly for that last game, we were all tired and kind of just wanted to have a gas because the cards are so random and absurd that it can really lend itself to just absurdist humor and have a good time. And it's more, how much do you want to stay dialed in on, all right, let's unpack that.
Yeah. And kind of in that too is that's part of why the aftercare is so important. Is you may think too that this game went goofy and comedic. The end of it, you're like, that just turned into a farce. And the person next to you on the table is sitting there going like, holy hell, that opened up a lot of shit for me. Well, or like, I didn't think about addiction in that way, or like how others might see it, or like, there's no way to know unless they're comfortable talking about it. So don't skip that cooldown because it's very dependent on the person.
And I would say, like, I wish it was in the rules because I think this is actually super important. And I agree with you, Lex. The asking of the question, what kind of game do you want out of this? What kind of tone do you want out of this? And then treating that truly like a line in a veil conversation. If one person says, I cannot do dark and disturbing tonight, even if they're the minority and everyone else is like, let's get in there. Like that should be a line where it's like, okay, one person is not comfortable with dark and disturbing. That means we're not going to do dark and disturbing.
Let's play Bluebeard's Bride instead. Right.
Yeah.
Oh, Lord.
It's like cult.
Oh, no.
Well, actually, just a little sidebar. What would you even do in that situation? Would you just play a different game, or would you exclude that one person and keep going?
I think if this were happening to me right now, if everyone like around here was like dark disturbing and Alex was like, can't do it, sorry. I think that at that point I would just off the cuff say, okay, well, are we okay with light and airy tonight? And if not, if people are like, it's really not, like, okay, let's just play Call of Cthulhu or something else. At that point you can just kind of off the cuff it, like, okay, let's just do something else then. But I think you need to honor that, and like
absolutely.
That's totally agree. Yeah. It's almost like communication is key. We should record multiple episodes reiterating that.
Oh, boy. We need to have like a bingo card.
I do want to note that one thing I liked a lot in this game, there's a card that says the facilitator principles. I wouldn't keep this to yourself if you're the facilitator, because it has really good advice, like leaving scenes open-ended, that there's no linear timeline, like don't try to explain scenes. That's not what you're going for. And like, it's there as the
Right.
principle, but I think players should know that too, because it really opens stuff up. Like we talked about doing things out of order. Is the last time we played, my character died, I would say 2/3 of the way through the act 1. Not a problem, kept showing up in scenes because it's told out of order, but that really let me kind of communicate,
Because then we
like,
saw you
how it's
before you
going.
skied into a wood chipper on slow.
Okay.
That character was not healthy, I would say. Um, and Beth pushed me also, I'm pretty sure.
Allegedly.
Allegedly. But yeah, having kind of that flexibility out there and all the players know it really lets you dive into that weirdness of it all.
You have the cards in front of you, Nathan. It might be
Yeah.
worth because we keep making references to these like our war stories but there's so little context that the audience has for like what do these scenes look like. Can you give
Sure.
us an example, Nathan, of like a prompt and an emotion?
Oh yeah. All right, so let's talk about
Do
the
one right
scene
now. We're gonna play
summary.
right now.
Ah!
Something's wrong on this podcast.
All right, so setting. There is a page that says what kind of Act 1 settings they have, and I'd say this scene takes place at the diner. Hey, I just Mad Libs the setting. The scenario. Look it down. Sharing a secret is one of them, and then we'd say who's in the scene. A couple players would jump in, which hopefully you've got people that are, kind of vibing with that jump in play. That could be kind of tough if players are sitting and eyeing each other and going like, I don't know if I should. Yeah, you should jump in, like get in there.
Get in there.
Yep. And then you might pick a bad feeling about someone you love is the thing. So
But yeah, that's the prompt.
all you
Yeah,
have. Yep.
that's all the prompts. So out of those types of prompts, we've gotten some wild storylines. And I think even, it says 2 to 3 players or people agree to be in the scene, but I think in every single one, at one, usually the final scene, it just where it's appropriate, people are like, hey, can we just all be in this scene? Like there was a funeral and they're like, I think we should all be in this scene. And I think you should just be open to that.
Yeah, that was great.
Also, expanding on that too, for that first game that you ran with Nathan, Alex, Colin, Morgan, and others, I remember I had a terrible headache earlier that day. And so whenever you were like recruiting people who would want to join, I ended up passing because I didn't think I would be very fun to be around. And it just became a hoot for me to constantly put on this weird Impossible Landscapes mask and just be in the background. That even if you have a friend who may not feel personally comfortable really throwing it out there, this is a weirdly fun game to just constantly be odd in the background. The story
you
of
can
my
take
life.
on a non-speaking role.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Exactly.
People always want me to do those. I don't know why.
I have a question for the group though, since we just talked about those prompts. They give the advice of about 5 minutes. Holly, you've done this before, but I want to open it to the group. How do you decide when you end a scene? What kind of hits for you to go like, that's enough?
Well, as someone who GMs a lot and is always looking for the cliffhanger scenes or the mic drops, that's like, it's naturally, right there.
Yeah, I like that. I've done that before too, where it's like it probably could keep going, but then like everyone busts into laughter at something someone said, or everyone's like, "Oh my god!" You're like, "All right, we're gonna call it there."
Cut.
Yeah, you got the button. Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's getting into your note from the facilitator card too, is like the scene should not have a conclusion. So if you see that they're sort of running out of gas and maybe whatnot, I think that's a very good time to cut it even mid dialogue, because that could potentially give those players some more time to sort of mull on what that may be, especially if they didn't define like the subject of the previous scene. I think that really this is not a game I would recommend sticking to the rules and format very rigidly and just going with the flow. It's an improv heavy game. Let's do some improvisation.
Yeah, no, that's really good advice all around. If you're an improv nerd, you might have heard edits. Edits are what you use to close out a scene. And the advice I always heard is edit sooner than you think you should. And I think that works well for this game of like, you get a button, but you have a minute left. call it, man. Like, you did a good job. You got a chuckle, or you've got people thinking. That's the end of the scene right there.
Sort of in that vein, I feel like we've sort of shifted away from general strengths and limitations of the system. So that seems like a good introduction for what things would you recommend to really try to make this system shine and have a great session with everyone.
Establishing the mood in the beginning, I think, is good. Like that mood question of like, what kind of story do we want to tell today is a good start. I think that I think it's a safety tool mentioned, and I want to like repeat it on the podcast. I think it's important because you're acting. I think there's a question about, are you comfortable being touched? And some people simply are not. And there are scenes, I think some of the characters can be romantically involved with each other. And like some people just like, I don't even want you to like hug me. No, thank you. So like having that and having that open and honest and in like a, non-judgy way of like, we just need to know, like, if you're not okay with being touched, that's fine. I just need you to tell me that so people don't touch you.
That was another one of my kind of would be nice to haves is I wish that there was an alternate for the kind of lovesick character, because in most of the games that tends to be sort of the last card on the draw. And I think that maybe adding that romantic element isn't exactly high on anyone's list. So it might be nice just to improv or provide an alternate last character so that way everyone has something.
I agree with that.
I like that.
The game also recommends low lighting and has like explicit music recommendations, which I've never actually taken it up on, because every time I play, I feel like I'm always in a game with someone who thinks that music is way too distracting. So I just never use it.
And that someone is you. Oh.
No, I know people who are like, I cannot have anything with lyrics or even anything with just anything, period. Like, it's just totally distracting.
But I do think that the lighting recommendations are really good. Like playing with low lighting in the dark, and then especially for those doppelganger scenes when it's supposed to be there is just a chair under a sole light in some room that the doppelganger describes, then like,
ooh, that's cool.
It feels really drastic and fun for the person sitting in the chair, because you know that there are the other players right around you, but thanks to that theater light effect, you can't really see them if you have just a sole light right on you.
I would feel like that's lighting and atmosphere. That's generally true for most tabletop RPGs. Like, it's all the details that matter. So, especially like in this game, like use props, right? Commit to a character. Be a strong supporter of your fellow improv partners.
If there were ever a game to bust out a smoke machine, I think this one might be it.
Oh, yeah.
That would have been great.
But I think saying those things, because the game doesn't really give you that direction as a facilitator to tell people, like, this is what you should be doing. And I think, like, explicitly saying that is good. Like, get in there, act as a background character. There's an art to being unobtrusive and adding just a little bit of flavor. And I think that,
Yeah. And if you're a background character, don't make it about you.
Yeah.
No. There's no small parts, just small motivation. But also, like, one of the terms you'll hear a lot is use the space. And I thought that adds a really interesting element to this that I don't remember seeing called out in the rules of, if you're in a hotel room that has like a divider in the room, use it, right? Like, use the stuff you have there, use the space. If you've got a stairwell near you, maybe there's an element to that you bring in. Kind of explore the space, if you will.
Funny enough, I think we used the space more in that tiny hotel room than we did in somebody's whole ass house.
Yeah.
So.
Well, there's only so far you can get before you're shouting across the room at people.
But also, I think that in that same vein, Holly, those restrictions really foster more creativity we only have so much room here. Like, what are we going to do? I'm supposed to be walking around a forest. We're going to just walk around in circles around that divider. And then you could get into that added layer of surrealism where someone acknowledges that they are actually just walking in circles in the forest, that you're removing that layer of suspension of disbelief. And now it's like, wait, what are we doing? And then everything falls apart and you change the scene.
Yeah.
A lot of fun.
Yeah, I would also advise, like, maybe it's a little, there might be a point of contention here, but like, rules are just rules. You can throw them out. Just do what you feel like doing and have a fun time, and that will contribute to a great scene.
And it's all card based, so it's real easy to do. You could just take one of these and whip it, and it's gone.
This is what I think about your rules, facilitator.
Yeah, I would advise if you're a facilitator coming in, and if you bought the set, you probably are the facilitator. Definitely read through it.
Read the rules to a
maybe
game?
couple times.
No.
I know it's crazy to say this, but
It's nuts.
even having played it, I read through it once, and I had to go back and kind of go like, okay, where's sound come in? Where's the facilitator principles? I think just, the different ways of processing information, it's probably a good idea to run through it a couple times so you know the flow of things before you put it in front of people.
Yeah, I really think if there were ever a system, repeating myself now, but some sort of a cheat sheet for the facilitator, but also I think it would be really helpful to develop some cue cards for the players. Maybe just a sheet of paper that you can laminate that has their name, who is meeting my need, what is my need,
that's
and
fine.
then
Yeah,
have those linkages right there for the player to just refer to, because it's easy to get lost in the sauce in this game, especially like as you start disrupting time. I forgot what my character's whole thing was partway through because we were just laughing so much about the Kennedy tapes and tacos and calzone.
It's a really good exercise if you're doing like improv of remembering a lot of information and then bringing it back. Because that's something, if you really want it to feel cohesive near the end, you probably should bring some things back. So for the example, we'll keep going back to Colin had the little koala on his finger. We did away with the koala and then we brought it back near the end, and that provided a really nice sort of narrative thing, kind of flow to it, that I think if you're not careful, you could end up just being like, here are 9 different scenes. They don't relate to each other at all. And now we're into doppelgangers. What do people have to work with then?
Okay, Nathan, I'm going to remove a hero point from you for completely glossing over the significance of Susan Koalas and how she got taken away, and then
sniped,
Jeff
I
was
believe.
brought in. And I want to move us into the war
Yeah,
stories
I think
right
we
now.
need to actually get into the story.
We need to
Yeah, let's
actually
do it.
explain the lore of Susan Koalas
Oh,
and
boy.
Jeff.
I don't even know, man. That was so. I love what Colin was doing with this. I think he was the love.
You mean
character,
PR?
if I remember correct. Pierre, yeah. You could never say his name. Nobody said his name correctly. He took a koala finger puppet that someone had brought to the convention, and like this was his partner, his wife, his something, and just there was no moment of anyone going, why is a finger puppet your wife? Everyone's like, of course that's his wife. That's
Mhm.
Susan.
But Susan, she's riddled with syphilis, and if you touch her nose, she climaxes.
and the plot devolved, and he came into Colin's character arrives in town with
Troy's character.
This is true. I was
who was
the
kind of
driver.
the straight man to that of
Yes.
trying to rein in Priya's sort of more wilder impulses,
Yes.
and hires a hitman.
Eventually, Alex's character is hired to assassinate Susan Koalas.
I had to do all the jobs in this town.
Yes, you were like the one person working.
I'm the only
literally
person working.
and you assassinate Susan Koalas, paid for by Troy's character or hired by Troy's character. That
Mhm,
comes
mhm.
out.
Nuts.
At some point, Troy's character is eating at a diner with Nathan's character, and he opens up,
With delicious pancakes.
and there is Susan Koalas' body, which he consumes.
And he takes an
Yep.
extra bite and remarks
Yep.
how delicious the pancakes are.
And then I don't remember if it was at Susan's funeral or not, but Alex's character is then hired to kill Troy's character. And there's just an entire scene where he's burying Troy, who's dead, but is talking with him.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was a and
Super
then
surreal.
Susan is replaced by a second puppet named Chef.
Was it supposed to be Susan's brother? Is Chef?
Evil.
Cheff was
Probably.
brought in. I don't remember how Chef was introduced,
That
but he
doesn't
was
matter.
woefully evil compared to Susan.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Still riddled with syphilis too.
That was, I think, the most surreal game I've ever played. That
It was such a standout to me
It was.
when I think Colin, his character, just started like he had a 5-minute rant about like finding a good bistro or place to get a good baguette, and that's why he turned evil or something. And
He needs to burn down this town because he'll never find a patisserie.
I think that was one of his prompts. I think
that was the monologuing
yeah.
until someone acknowledges it. And like,
card.
oh my God, knocked
but
it out of the
park. But he did such a good job with it. And it was interesting, you know, when I talked to Colin later about it, he was like, I don't know if I want to ever play this again because I don't think anything will ever match to this experience. and he legitimately, though, he had like reservations about playing it again. He's like, I don't want this to, like, you know, anytime I try to play it again, it's just not going to measure up. And he played it again, and he was like, yeah, I can see, like, with different people, like Alex's analogy of like two different player groups, like with different people, you just get something different out of it. It's just, it's not ever going to be better or worse. It's just going to be different. It's just going to be completely different.
So would you say that this game has a lot of replayability?
I think so. Yeah. And I think you can make it more replayable by like creating different characters, different prompts, different everything. Like it's so improvisationally based. Mm-hmm. More war stories. The Kennedy Zone. The calzone. Kennedy tapes. Everything's a taco. Everything's a calzone. The Kennedy tapes. I think how the Kennedy tapes arose was Nathan's character's a drug addict. And
yes,
at some point,
emphatically,
the Kennedy tapes became like slang for drugs.
I think they were the tapes though, but then
it was literally
unclear.
I think there was a bless their heart moment of like someone didn't understand that it was supposed to be drugs, and they're like, it's the literal Kennedy tapes. Then it was every you know conspiracy tape is drugs. So like the moon landing tapes, 9/11 tapes, like these are all different types of drugs. So yeah, that was different. And then like again, I mentioned before, like Morgan, just who puts his whole self into these characters, played a drug addict, and like the drug was basically the box. So the box, like he was literally carrying the box in every single scene and would not give it up. And then his scene with his doppelganger, who was David. David took the box from him, and he is like crawling after him, trying to get the box. And David's like, "You can't have the box. You can't have it." And it was very emotional. Like I said, like people are like, this was like therapy.
Yeah, I think that's one of the biggest things you'll find if you play this game is you might listen to the stories we do and go like, yeah, I like, you know, it's like saying a dream afterwards is like, okay, it's cool to me, may not be as cool to you, but getting out there and making your own, like, I still think about some of the characters and then like some of the meaning of things, right? Like, what does it mean that your two characters were arguing about what is or isn't a taco? What is or isn't, like, why did the two of you have such a emotional reaction to that discussion, right? Because I think if I remember right, Lex, you were a little bit more straightforward making the case, but Beth, who was playing with us, like, as you were discussing it, it was really hitting her character hard.
It's because her character was, I think she was an author or a screenwriter who was in a creative rut and unable to create anything. And so she made this analogy when we were having the conversation in the diner. It's like, well, fine, I'll make this sandwich. There, it's something new that I created. And I said, isn't a sandwich just two pieces of bread that are put together? You can wrap them into two tacos. You didn't make anything new. It's just a taco. Everything has always only been a taco. And she burst into tears crying. It was so funny.
But I think one of the things I like about this game, having played it a couple times, is it is both funny, but at the same time, like, especially thinking about it afterwards, it's pretty heartbreaking too.
Yeah.
Like, thinking about that, someone getting that discussion put on them of like, no, you're never going to make anything new. It's all just repackaging of repackaging, like, fits the Americana theme very well. And it's hella depressing. At the same time, it's very funny.
The characters are written to be quite dark, you know?
Yeah.
You know, it's also very Lynchian that sometimes stuff like straight up just doesn't have any meaning. And like David Lynch is infamous for never explaining anything, and it's really all about the user or the viewer's interpretation. So yeah, that's beautiful.
And I think that really, more than anything, elevates the notion to add contribute your own things beyond what is just on the cards, because even if it never comes up again, that absurdity, that just like, why does he work at a plastic bag factory? And you've moved on. There's no need to question it because it is just there.
Yeah, I think of any of the games that we've played it, especially like the cons, these are the ones that I still remember and think about fairly frequently.
They're just so weird, and they're not like the games that are out that are popular or mainstream, and that I think this is why we love covering these aberrations.
Are there any other similarly batshit weird games, like within a tolerable margin of like similar to this, or at least similarly fucking weird?
Just do ketamine.
I think actually, so I think we've already said 10 Candles, but on a lighter note, the Grant Howitt game, The Horse Around the House.
Oh, yeah.
In which you're in a 90s sitcom, and every scene, you're like filming a 90s sitcom, and every scene there is a horse that the players can neither acknowledge nor look at. And if they do, there are consequences. And the GM is a director who is like feeding the chaos and like making it even more chaotic. I think this is like the lighthearted other side of the coin to Something Is Wrong Here a little bit, is The Horse Around the House.
It would be like if the box could kick you in the face and break your jaw.
But the problem with that is all of the characters in that horse one are under crippling debt.
Yeah,
and they're
also
leave.
very troubled.
Yeah, and it does. It goes again to that, like, it is in a game where my face gets kicked in through the wall of a sitcom after I give like a pep talk about the ball game. That's very funny. But also taking that step back and looking at that as like okay, this is an actor who couldn't quit this job because their mother was sick and they just died. It's fun to look back at and really like kind of take it apart, because as always, capitalism is the actual horror of the game.
What was that radio game we played with Fiona?
Community radio.
Yeah, community radio. That was also a very similar vibe.
Yeah, lots of improv, lots of kind of that one using that Mad Libs to come up with scene ideas. It's just a different way of doing openers. I would really be interested, like, the structure of 3 scenes a break, 3 scenes a break, 3 scenes a break it's almost exactly a Herald, which is a comedy improv structure. It would be interesting to see people actually put this on as a play, because there's nothing stopping them. Like, it could be really compelling to do a stage version of this, but I think it has to probably be a physical location. What do you guys think? Would this even work very well online?
Player dependent, actor dependent, or it could just be like avant-garde, just mush.
Yeah.
The theater, a film student production.
All right.
I would pay money for Something Is Wrong with Dropout. And
have you, Nathan? I have to ask this. I've meant to ask you this forever. Have you ever attended a performance of Sleep No More? Because I feel like that'd be up your alley.
So this goes back to I don't really like the touch thing. Like, okay. I'm the person that rules is there for, of like, I just get weirded out by it. Yeah, but that kind of immersive theater is also at the same time very cool. They don't have any in Wisconsin, I'll tell you that much.
Yeah. So for those who don't know, and Nathan, I'm going to rely on you to help me a little bit. Sleep No More, I don't believe it is in production anymore, but it was a long-running production of Macbeth in New York, where I think it's in a hotel, and the actors like move throughout the hotel, and the audience like follows them from scenes to scene, and like it's supposed to be interactive. It's weird. I can't give more context than that because I'm not overly familiar with it. Nathan, do you have anything to add to that?
It does look like it did close. It says it's done its final thing, but and then having those there's a whole genre, I don't know the names of them, of interactive theater exhibits where you might go and follow a single character around and you might not see everything else. Like
Right.
it's so experimental. It's really interesting. Yeah, I think this is kind of a step in that direction as a role playing game. I do think one of Lynch's phrases that I like a lot is people like would ask David Lynch to talk about his works, and he'd be like, "No, the film is the talking. The thing you've made is, the communication about it." And I think there's something to that there. Is I don't know that I'd want to sit and pick apart stuff with other people necessarily, but I like sitting afterwards and just kind of mulling on what we played.
That goes into our discussion with Haley Piper about queer horror,
Mhm.
and that like once you put art out there, it is no longer yours to say what it means. It is up to interpretation of your viewer, your reader, the person consuming your art. And I think that's like just David Lynch's maybe part of like his thought is like it's not mine to interpret anymore.
You've already put in your part of the conversation.
Yeah,
Right.
it's in the hands of the person who consumed it.
Yeah, good point.
And so then I guess just for one final question is, how would you make this a hack for 5e?
The scream I just did internally.
Scream you scrummed.
That was David Lynch screaming even.
He's rolling in his grave. He's powering a small city right now.
We hope our manic babbling can help you bring this game to life at your table, or room, or abandoned. You can play this anywhere, really. Be sure to check the show notes of this episode for links where you can find a copy of this system for yourself, any other resources that we can share, there's not really actual plays of this, as well as an invite to our lab's Discord server to discuss more reanimations and aberrations, which is code for weird fucking games that are very fun to play. We also post all of our episodes and resources to our Patreon that's free to follow, or if you like, you can make a charitable donation to help us keep the ominously flickering lights on at the H. West Memorial Mortuary and Laboratories. So until next time, thanks for listening to RPG Reanimators.
Where your games can die.
Or live.
On the table.
Ethereal whooshing.
Yeah. Woo.
There is a
Definitive,
director's
whatever,
cut.
Director's
Yeah,
cut.
Yeah.
The definitive extended director's cut.
Yeah.
Zack Snyder edition.
Ooh, that's the good one then. The one where it's like it takes twice as long, but it's actually a halfway decent movie.